the government expects to more than double, in real terms, annual capital spending on housing.
Chancellor there setting out his plans on housing and infrastructure. With me is Darshana Ubl, a small business advisor and co-founder of Verve Rally, and Miles Gibson, who is head of the property research company CBRE, an expert in the retail sector, and also a former private secretary to Tony Blair. Thank you both for joining us. Welcome to you both. Miles, let me start with just one of the headline figures, and that is the downturn in growth. In 2017, down from 2.2 to 1.4%. Is that something that you saw coming?
Yes, actually, that's very consistent with our own forecast. The Chancellor is quite right to downgrade 2017. Actually, the UK economy has had a bit of steam in it recently, and we saw that in the Q3 GDP figures. But actually, going into next year, we do expect a bit of a weakening. So 1.4% for 2017 sounds about right to us, and then a strengthening in 2018.
What is it that leads the OBR to see this downturn? I mean, is there something tangible that you can put your finger on? Is there a reason that business doesn't feel so confident?
Yes, there is.
Obviously,
I mean, Brexit uncertainty, a word that incidentally didn't appear at all in the Chancellor's speech as far as we can see, but he hinted at the reasons. He said uncertainty, and there's a great deal of uncertainty in the business community right now about how the migration and trade aspects of Brexit are going to play out. But he also referred to imported inflation, that the drop in the value of the pound has meant it's more expensive for us to import goods now, and that itself can have a depressing effect on economic growth.
Which impacts greatly on small business, Darshana.
It does indeed.
Yeah. When we talk about uncertainty, is this something that small business have been talking about more and more over the last few months as we've waited for the Brexit plan?
Yes. In fact, since June 23rd, everyone has been in a little bit of a shock, saying, okay, now we have to change the way we do business. And what are the new rules? We don't know that. So till the time we for sure know how the negotiations are going to go forward, which are the countries we're working with, we are not, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty in the market. But as a small business myself, I think one thing I'd like to tell small businesses out there is that you have to be prepared. In times of turmoil, one thing if history has taught us is that following that will be the times of opportunity. So as you said, 2018, we'll see a steep curve and things will come back. So
you have this uncertainty, and at the same time you're having to take or carry a higher living wage, which is going to put more pressure, particularly on smaller businesses.
Yes. For a short term, there will be a lot of things which we all will have to look at. But again, there could be opportunities. For instance, Europe has been slowing down, and in fact, in the last 8 years, it has almost been stagnant. It was only earlier this year that it started coming back to the figures where it was 8 years ago. Now, we had trade relationships with Europe. Now, the world is opening up to us. US wants to do business with us. There are other emerging markets that want to do business with us, which have better growth there. So you never know. It could be for the better, it could be for the worse. But it's only once the negotiations start taking place that we'll get to know.
Miles, just turning to I know you're in the commercial property sector, but let's just turn to housing, and particularly this announcement today on letting fees, which has got a lot of coverage. Is that something you welcome?
We see no harm in it whatsoever, actually. I mean, I think that what will happen in practice is that fee will need to be paid somewhere, because usually the fee is a legitimate expense, for example, a credit check or something like that.
But not at such exorbitant fees.
Well, it depends. I mean, our clients tend not to charge any fees at all. No. But what we suspect will happen is that if there's an opportunity, the landlord may put it into the rent. But that's still a benefit, because you don't have those big upfront fees, and that's what people are really complaining about. In other parts of the country, if there's plenty full supply of rented housing, the landlord will have to take the hit and pay those fees himself.
And in terms of infrastructure, I mean, small business for a long time has complained about the underinvestment in local road networks, in broadband, these sort of things. Do you see some of the things that he's talked about today as helping small business?
Yes, finally, they're putting in more budget for research and development, and there's going to be digital transformation, which means every home and small business that relies heavily on the internet will benefit, because we'll have up to 10 times or even more broadband speed. So we'll transition from 4G to 5G, which and if we do that really well, we could be pioneers in business, and gives us that competitive advantage.
Another thing he talked about today was our low productivity. I think he said at one point that it takes us 5 days to what Germany takes 4 days to make. So, we take a day longer. And I'm not sure if people understand why that is. We work just as hard as the Germans, don't we?
Absolutely, we do work as hard as the Germans. But one of the things that I think the Chancellor is trying to get at in his speech is that there are certain things that government can do to improve productivity, and infrastructure is one of the big things he's focusing on at the moment. If you invest in the capital stock of the country, then you can make it easier for people to get around, to get to the jobs that they want to take, for example, and that assists on productivity measures. So the amount of money that he's putting into transport, remember he's an ex-Transport Secretary himself, so he knows the territory, is really very significant, and I think signals a change of approach at the Treasury.
And this National Productivity Fund of £23 billion, that sounds a lot of money, but you two think that's just a drop in the ocean?
Yes.
Well, you can never really spend enough on infrastructure. You know, the Germans are very good at it. That's why the Chancellor has set his new higher percentage of GDP target for infrastructure in the next Parliament. That's a very encouraging sign from the new Chancellor that he's taking this very seriously indeed. The money for housing and the money for transport infrastructure, we do think will make a difference. The question for us is making sure that it's spent on the right projects that put housing, for example, in the right parts of the country, and that it's connecting places up. That's really very important.
And also in the service sector, a lot of services that UK delivers depend on good infrastructure, and they depend on things like fast broadband. So these things eventually will come back and have higher returns. So whatever he has started with is a great beginning. We want to see more.
Okay. Thank you both for coming in this evening. Darshana, Miles, very good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.